Hello, everyone. It's been a big week. I am recording this 2 days after the launch of Grounded Wildness, and it's been good and big, and I have been so touched by everything that people have shared on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, and the ways that I'm seeing the book already touch people. It only came out on Tuesday, but the people who pre-ordered it, some of them got it on like Monday or on Tuesday. So they're already diving in. And I got messages from people that they were already halfway through the book, less than 24 hours after getting it, or that it felt healing. And it felt so good to hear what was going on in that book and know they weren't alone. Yeah, it's been really, really touching. Like I definitely had some few tears on Tuesday night, just reading everyone's posts and hearing their thoughts on the book and how gorgeous the cover is. That's also a very common theme. And then I found out too that the first company has just chosen Grounded Wildness for their next Women's Network book club pick. So 150 women at their company are going to be reading Grounded Wildness. And then I'm going to come join them in January for a discussion of the book. So lots of really cool things going on. So I do that. I definitely speak in keynotes as well, but if your company's doing a big book launch or not launch, big book club event, reach out. I'd love to talk to you about Grounded Wildness and maybe coming to your company, doing a virtual discussion and Q&A with folks. So yes, it has been a big week. And I thought about doing an entire episode on Grounded Wildness. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to like just share quotes from the book or stories or things like that. You know where to get information from Grounded Wildness. If not, I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a link in the show notes, or you can go to my website, which is what the link will take you to. It's heatherwhelpley.com/grounded wildness. And right at the top of that page is going to be an orange order button, which is where you'll get hardcover signed copies. I hand ship every single one of them with a bookmark and a fun sticker. And then if that's not your jam, if hardcover isn't your jam and you're more into ebooks or audiobooks, those will be out on Amazon November 2nd, along with the companion journal, which I'm super excited about. I knew I wanted a journal from the get-go with this one, and that'll also make a really awesome holiday gift with the book. So lots of good things happening on the Grounded Wildness front. But that is all I'm going to talk about it today. I mean, it might come up one or more. It might come up a little bit, but it's really, today is not about the book. It is about this topic of asking for what you want. And I'm splitting this into two parts because it's such a huge thing. And there's no way that I could do this all in like a 25-minute podcast. Like this could probably be a 3-hour workshop on asking for what you want. And who knows, maybe someday I'll do that. But for today, we're going to do part 1 of asking for what you want. This episode was inspired by a few observations I had in a very short amount of time of things happening around me. They were very small things, but I felt like they were indicative of larger challenges. We'll just say that. Here were the situations. Situation number 1. I was in line at a beverage stand at a concert in back of someone. And that person had ordered a cocktail, had ordered a beverage, and the person making her drink, asked her if she wanted any lime to go with it. And the person responded with, only, do you already have them cut up? Like only if it's not too much trouble. Only if it's not too much trouble, then yes, I'll take a lime. But if you have to like cut the lime up, don't worry about it. I'll just take the drink as it is. Yep. So that was situation number 1. And then situation number 2 was not that long later. I was sitting in my local coffee shop where I sit very frequently and work. And I just noticed, I think this other situation was fresh in my mind. I was pretty close to the cash register where people were ordering. And I just noticed that like about half the women who came in, when they ordered, used the words just or little, like, oh, I'll just have a little cup of coffee. I'll just have a quick bagel. I'll just have a little something. I just want to order this one little thing. Like essentially diminishing their order. Now I realize we're talking about bagels and coffee here, not things that are changing the world, and limes in a cocktail. Again, things that are not changing the world, not impacting the big things in your life. But yet I was like, this is indicative of the bigger things in your life. Because if you can't ask for a lime from someone that has already asked you if you want one and that you are paying to create your drink, or if you can't stand in line and say, I would like a bagel, please. And yes, some cream cheese on that would be fantastic. I will have a large latte, not I'll just have a quick little latte. I'll just have a little bagel. No, I will have a bagel. I felt like this was so indicative of being able to ask for and own the desire for those other things, for those bigger things in life. And yes, you deserve to have a lime in your cocktail and a bagel and a coffee, however you want it as well. And this is about so much more than bagels and limes and coffee. It is about truly asking for what you want and owning it. And when those things happened all at the same time, these observations, I thought, I need to dive into this. I need to talk about this more on the podcast because you deserve to have the things that you truly desire. And before we can get into any of the how do you ask for what you want, there's the obvious question that often stands in the way, which is, what do you want? You have to know what you want in order to ask for what you want. Now, I'm definitely not someone who thinks you need to have like an exact plan, 5 or 10-year plan of exactly all the things that you want, but a general idea, whether it's what you want for dinner or whether it is something bigger like what you want in your career, or if you're starting to date someone and they're like, what are you looking for in a relationship? You should be able to answer those questions. You should be able to know what you want. But the thing is, I know it's not always that simple. For some people, it is. So for some people, it is that simple. And for some people, it's simple in one part of your life. Like one part of your life is super clear. I know exactly what I want in the career arena. But my God, when you ask me about where do I want to live, or what kind of relationship do I want, or how do I want my current relationships to change, that gets fuzzy really, really quickly. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of barriers and rules that can stand in the way of you even knowing what you want. I don't do much coaching anymore, but when I did, I would almost always ask people in that initial call. So I'd have like an initial call with them before they ever decided to work with me, because we needed to feel out if it was a good fit on both sides. And I would frequently ask the question, if you had a magic wand, you could fast forward yourself a year from now. You had a magic wand, you could have whatever you wanted. What would it be? What would be different in your life a year from now if you had a magic wand? And some people had an immediate answer to that and they knew exactly what it was. And other people had no clue. Even when given this big, you have a magic wand, there are no barriers. No barriers. This is magic we are talking about. What do you want? And they didn't know the answer. They didn't know the answer because of all of these different rules and barriers. And I'm going to talk through a bunch of them. And I want you to just like listen and notice which ones are true for you. Notice which of these barriers have come up for you and just getting clear. So throw the asking part out the window for right now. Just think about what you actually want. Part of it might just be you're out of practice. You are out of practice asking for what you want. You haven't done it in a long time, so you're out of practice. Maybe you're disconnected because you're out of practice, or because you just haven't asked yourself in a really long time, like, what do I actually want? Sometimes you're disconnected from your body's signals. So like even really simple things of like, what do you want for dinner? Or what exercise or what movement feels good right now? What do you really need in this moment to feel good? If you're disconnected from your body, which I mean, Lord knows I was for a really long time. Talk a little bit more about that in Grounded Wildness. See, it did come up. It wasn't written down in my notes, but it came up anyway. If you're disconnected from your body, it's hard to know what your body wants. It's hard to know how to listen. It's hard to know what's even there. So those are some of the reasons that it's there. Some of the other reasons that it can be hard or to know what you want is that you have been listening to others' voices over what is actually true for you for a long time. And again, this might show up more in some part of your life than another. Like maybe in your career, it's been a really long time since you've stopped to ask, God, what do I really want? If I could design my career, what would I want? Because you've just been stepping along. You've been going from one thing to the next without stopping to ask, or you've been given some really concrete, significant advice to go a certain path and you've gone down that path and maybe that's right for you and maybe it's not, but you haven't even stopped to question because you've been listening to those other voices around you. You might also have gotten a couple of different rules that can contribute to this. One is that it is selfish to do what you want. In your free time, with your career, like you can't just go off and do what you want. That's selfish. This shows up probably even more so for people who are mothers. Like it's selfish to do what you want when you should be caring for someone else and keeping them happy and being responsible for everything. But it can show up for anyone out there. It's selfish to do what you want. It's selfish to spend your time on things that you want to do. It's selfish to do what you want. Or it's a burden. It's a burden to do what you want, or even more so to ask other people to help you move in the direction of what you want. Like I think of this person I was behind who literally in line for the drink, the cocktail, that the person asked her if she wanted a lime and she couldn't just say yes or no. Like that's a simple question, yes or no. And instead she felt like she couldn't be a burden, or that was my interpretation. I don't know what was going on inside of her, but it was like only if it's not that big of a deal, only if it's tiny. And I will also add, there was no one in line behind me. So it wasn't like there were 80 people in line who were all waiting to get their cocktail and things were in a hurry. No, not at all. And yet my assumption, my interpretation was that this person felt like they couldn't be a burden by simply asking for a lime for their beverage when it had already been asked of them if they wanted one. And then that gets even bigger if you like legitimately need help or desire with something, or you need contribution. I mean, I've been asking people for help with Grounded Wildness so much lately. Like I have a launch team of amazing people. I'm sure if you are listening to this right now, thank you. You are amazing. And I emailed a whole bunch of people asking for their help. I'm doing some launch parties in both Minnesota and Colorado, and I'm asking people for help because I can't do that on my own. And yet this is something I really want. It's something I desire. And with the book itself, I want to get the word out. I want more people to have it, and not just to sell more books, but my overarching goal is that Grounded Wildness gets in the hands of everyone who needs it. I can't do that alone. Grounded Wildness cannot get into the hands of everyone who needs it if I am the only one sharing it, if I'm the only one talking about it, if it's just me. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I need other people to help move towards that vision, not just for me, but with me, because we are in this together. So thank you. If you have been a part of that, you have been amazing. I have been touched and floored and so many things by what you have shared. And what's also true is that if I felt like that was all a burden, so much of a burden that I couldn't even ask, then it's not going to get into the hands of everyone who needs it. So we have to move forward and recognize that rule and know that, one, you probably aren't a burden. And two, you know what? You're allowed to be a little bit of a burden sometimes. And again, it's not usually even that you are being a burden, but if you're feeling that way, like you are allowed every once in a while, that you are allowed to ask people for help. You are allowed to ask for what you want and what you need. And we want to help each other out, which is why it's not a burden in the first place. All right. And then finally, the last one, which I think is true for a lot of us, and this was certainly true for me for a long time, which is that I didn't have the space to hear what I wanted. This was especially true for me in my career. I I knew that I got the feeling, that's probably a better way of putting it, for a long time that, another 30 years in my corporate jobs probably wasn't what was right for me, but I never slowed down long enough to ask myself what was right for me and what I wanted. And I have no regrets about my 10 years in corporate. It was good and it set me up for what I'm doing now. And I'm also in a much better spot now. And part of that was being able to listen to myself. And I needed to create the space because I didn't for a really long time. So just that rule of like not having space or not feeling like you can have the space, being so busy that you don't have the space to hear and listen what you want, like those are real. So I want to pose that question to you. What is standing in your way? What's standing in your way of knowing what you want? Is it something I mentioned? Is it something different that came up for you as you were listening through this? If you aren't sure, but this is really resonating with you, that's a really good place to do some journaling as well, and meditating or walking or anything where you're putting that question in the back of your mind and just saying, what is getting in the way of what you want? So that's part one, knowing those barriers. And then part two is really what we're going to get into the rest of today and then tomorrow, which is actually getting clear on what you want and then asking for it. So getting clear on what you want is the first thing. And if this is hard for you, if you don't know what those things are, start small. Start by asking yourself when you're making dinner, what do I really want for dinner? Not what I should have, not what I feel like I should have. What do I really want? Even if you can't fulfill it, like even if what comes to you is I would like a filet mignon with mashed potatoes and asparagus with a hollandaise sauce on top, and you're looking at what's in your fridge and the time you have on the clock, and you're like, that's not going to happen. Even just knowing it is a helpful step. If you have an hour free in the afternoon, pause and ask yourself, what do I really want with this hour? What do I want? How do I want to spend my time? What would feel good right now? Starting out small is really helpful, but then you can also get bigger. So in my keynote on creating your own rules for success, I first go through all these rules, some of which are related to what we're talking about today, some of which are not, that tell us what success is, that tell us to prove, please, and perfect our way towards someone else's definition of success, essentially. And in that keynote, then I talk about stepping away from those rules and creating your definition of success for where you are right now at this point in your life, in your work, in your career, separate from the rules that you have been handed. And I share this equation for success, where success is holistically being just who you are, times impact and meaning. So essentially the impact that you want to create, purpose, fulfillment, meaning, all of that, times desire. So what you really want, separate from the shoulds and supposed tos. And when you combine those together, that is your holistic definition of success. And as I'm guiding people through this in the keynote, for both desire and impact and meaning, I pause and we do some journal prompts right then and right there inside the keynote. So people are walking away with answers to that. And I'm going to share the three that I share right in the middle of that keynote with you today that are around the desire. Because there are three that get at this question in totally different ways and typically get it at a deeper level than like, what do you want for dinner? Or how do you want to spend your time for an hour? So those three questions are, you can write them down, you can journal on them, you can come back to them later. It's really helpful to like set a timer for 5 minutes on one of the questions and then just write and see what comes up for you. But here they are. Number one, what I really want is. What I really want is, and then just see what comes up. So that's number one. Number two, the dream for my career is. And then number three, I particularly like this one, my 90-year-old self would regret. My 90-year-old self would regret. And then just start writing whatever comes up to you, being open to whatever that is. And wow, those 3 questions, probably any of the 3, but if you sat down for a while, you did different ones over the course of a few days or a few weeks, you're going to get some unearthing going on just by asking yourself those questions. What I really want is, the dream for my career is, and my 90-year-old self would regret. So start by investigating, start by asking yourself what you really want. And then, and we'll end with this one, start asking in small ways. We're going to get into the bigger ways next time, in small ways. And I heard this hilarious example on Facebook or some sort of social media, quite a while ago, and it stuck with me. They were like, "Oh, are you a people pleaser who can't ask anyone to like do anything for you? This is how you're going to get over that. Drink 28 ounces of fluid and then get on a plane in the window seat." Like, you're not going to be able to make it through the plane ride without being a quote unquote burden and asking 2 other people to move out of their seats so you can go to the bathroom. Like, you're not going to have an option. You're going to have to ask them to move. You're going to have to inconvenience them to meet your own needs. And I thought that was such a funny example. And I also thought, like, I have been on a plane. I like the window seat. And there are times like I will sit there, like, practically like wetting my pants, especially if the person next to me looks like they're asleep. And then, like, until the point comes where it's just not an option and you have to get up. So it is a really funny example, but it can also be true for like asking for what you need and having to fulfill it because you don't have a choice. You can also start in other smaller ways, like ordering what you really want or asking a friend or your partner to help you with something. Like, these can be small things. Like, start building that muscle. If you feel like you want to ask for something big, ask for something big too. But if this is hard for you, start with the small things. And don't just ask, but state or ask in a direct way. Like, none of this justs, none of these littles, no I'm sorries. Just say what you want. Ask for what you want and really practice that. Like, no apologies, no cowering down with what you want. Just ask or tell, whichever the situation calls for what you want. So start building up that muscle. And then the next time we're going to dive deeper into some of the harder things, the bigger things of asking for what you want, the challenges that can come up when you are doing that, both internally and some of the actual challenges on the outside, and how to work through that. But start small. Start small by asking, knowing what's in the way of you asking for what you want, actually getting clear on what it is that you want, which is an ongoing journey, and then starting small by asking. We're going to dive deeper into it next week, or not next week, 2 weeks from now. And I've gotten some really great feedback on the one interview that I've done on this podcast with Dara Beavis. And there for sure will be more interviews coming. Actually, I have 2 interviews scheduled, both in November. So they'll come out in either late November or December. So it's going to be a mix. It's going to be a mix, but it was great to hear that feedback that you really enjoyed the conversation with Dara. I loved it. It was so fun to hear her perspective on the rules that she was handed, what's similar, what's different, and hear her unique experiences. And I love hearing other people's stories. And I'm really glad we're bringing that into the podcast, and that it's going to be a mix. It's going to be a mix of both, a mix of interviews and hearing from women who are living in grounded wildness and creating their own rules for life, and some solo episodes that are more like today, a little bit more under a certain topic. As I like listening to both, and maybe one will resonate with you more than the other, one style, and that's cool. You can decide what you want to listen to and what you don't. But I'm excited to offer both going forward. So that is it for today. If you want to get in on the grounded wildness goodness, go to the link in the show notes, my website, heatherwhelpley.com/grounded wildness. Or if you're listening to this after November 2nd, you can also get everything on Amazon, and the ebook and audiobook and journal are all going to be available globally as well. Right now, it's just in the US. So the book is only available in the US, but that is changing very, very shortly. So yes, there should be reviews out there, all sorts of good things. And if that keynote on creating your own rules for success sounded intriguing, I'll put a link in the show notes to my speaker page and to book a consultation to learn more about what my speaking topics are, and to learn more if you have an event coming up, or if you want to introduce me to someone at your company, even if you aren't the one scheduling the event or planning for the speaker. Most companies have things going on. They're thinking about women's employee resource groups, Women's History Month, International Women's Day, all of the different things. And yeah, that's what I do. So I'd love to talk with you more about it. So until next time, notice what's in the way of asking for what you want. Start to get clear on what you want and start to ask. No I'm sorry's, no justs, no littles. Own it, stand in it, and ask for what you want. Bye.